All right, so today we're diving deep into Namibia.
Ooh, Namibia.
Yeah, have you ever been?
I have not, but it's definitely on the list. I mean, talk about a place that just screams adventure.
No.
Like, right, you've got these towering sand dunes and then this desolate coastline. I mean, it just looks incredible in photos.
It's a land of extremes for sure, and that's what we're going to really dig into today. We've got all sorts of fascinating information about Namibia, from its ancient landscapes to, its incredible wildlife, its culture, and honestly, some really inspiring conservation efforts going on there.
Oh, that's great to hear. I'm always curious about how countries are tackling those conservation challenges, especially with such unique ecosystems.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's striking to me is just how vast and untouched so much of Namibia is. Like, you see these pictures and it's just endless horizons. And then you realize it's one of the least densely populated countries in the world.
Yeah. It's amazing how that kind of space can impact a place. Like, you can really feel the scale of nature there. I bet it's just a completely different experience.
Definitely. And just beneath the surface, you've got this whole layer of history, too. Like, Namibia has this German colonial past that still kind of echoes in the present day.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know much about that. I'm curious to hear more about how that shaped things.
Me too. Well, let's start with something that just completely blows my mind every time I think about it. The Namib Desert.
Okay. Famous desert, right?
Oh, yeah. Famous, but more than that, it's ancient, like at least 55 million years old. The oldest desert on Earth.
Wow. 55 million years. Like, that's almost impossible to really grasp. I mean, what does that even do to a landscape over that kind of time?
It's wild to think about, right? I mean, it's a testament to just how powerful these geological forces are and how they shape our planet over these timescales that are just so far beyond, our human experience.
Totally. And within that ancient landscape, I mean, you have these iconic sand dunes of Sossusvlei. Some of them are like over 300 meters high, like massive, right?
I've seen pictures. They're just unreal. And the way the light plays on them, I can see why photographers are just obsessed with them.
Oh, absolutely. They're like these giant sculptures constantly being reshaped by the wind. Then you have adventurers who, want to climb them and sandboard down them. It's like a natural playground for everyone.
Totally. But then shift gears completely just to the west of the Namib Desert. You hit this completely different landscape. The Skeleton Coast.
Okay, the Skeleton Coast. That name sounds ominous.
It is, and it's as dramatic and treacherous as it sounds. I mean, this coastline is notorious for shipwrecks.
What makes it so dangerous?
Well, you've got this really cold current, the Benguela current, that flows up from Antarctica, and when that hits the warm desert air, it creates this incredibly dense fog.
Oh, wow. I can imagine that would be a nightmare for ships, especially, back in the day before modern navigation.
Exactly. And then you throw in unpredictable currents, rough seas, and you can see how this place earned its reputation.
Yeah. You said shipwrecks, so I'm guessing the name comes from more than just, the look of the coast.
You got it. Historically, the coast was littered with whale and seal bones, too. It was a harsh environment for marine life as well. So you have these skeletal remains scattered along the shore, along with the wreckage of ships. It's really stark imagery.
Wow, it sounds like a really haunting place.
Yeah.
Like beautiful, but with this undercurrent of danger and history.
Definitely. And that brings us back to that idea of the vastness of Namibia. We mentioned it's one of the least densely populated countries in the world. I mean, it's over 824,000 square kilometers with only around 2.5 million people.
Yeah, that's hard to even picture. Like, what is it actually like to be in a place with so few people spread over such a huge area?
Well, you can travel for hours and just be surrounded by untouched nature. No signs of human development, just wide open spaces. It's a sense of solitude you don't find in many places anymore.
Well, I can only imagine, like, you could really feel connected to the natural world there.
Totally. And speaking of feeling connected to nature, we have to talk about Etosha National Park. This is one of the premier wildlife destinations in Africa.
Okay. What makes Etosha so special?
Well, first of all, it has this massive salt pan at its center, like so big you can see it from space.
Seriously, a salt pan that big?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And during the dry season, animals congregate around the water holes that are dotted around the edge of the pan.
I see. So it's like this central point that dictates where all the life goes?
Exactly. So you get this incredible concentration of wildlife. You're talking elephants, lions, rhinos, cheetahs. It's like stepping into a nature documentary.
Oh, that sounds incredible. Like prime wildlife viewing right there.
Absolutely. Especially during those dry months. It's a prime example of how life adapts to these extreme environments.
That's amazing. I'm making notes. Etosha, gotta go.
Definitely add it to the list. Okay, so we've talked about the ancient landscapes, the incredible wildlife. But now let's shift gears a bit to history. Namibia has this fascinating German colonial past that lasted from 1884 to 1915. And that period has left a lasting impact.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that earlier. I'm curious to hear more about that. How is it still visible today?
Well, you can see it in the architecture, especially in coastal towns like Swakopmund. They have these beautiful buildings with a very distinct German style.
So like a little slice of Europe in Africa. Interesting.
Yeah, it's a really unique blend. And the influence goes beyond architecture. You'll find German-inspired food is pretty common, like bratwurst, pretzels, things like that. And even the German language is still spoken in some communities.
Oh, that's fascinating, like these cultural threads that have woven their way through history.
Exactly. And then alongside that, you have this rich tapestry of indigenous cultures. The Himba people are particularly fascinating.
I've seen pictures of the Himba people. The women especially. Their appearance is so striking.
It is. They use this mixture called oatjais, which is made from red ochre pigment and butterfat. They rub it on their skin and hair. And it's not just for decoration. It acts as a natural sunscreen and helps protect their skin from the harsh sun.
Oh, that's smart. Like both beautiful and practical.
Exactly. And their lifestyle is so deeply connected to the land. They're semi-nomadic, herding cattle and goats. It's a really strong connection to their ancestral traditions and to the environment.
That's incredible. I mean, to maintain those traditions in the face of, modernization and globalization is just so impressive.
It is. It speaks to the resilience of their culture.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about ancient history, we've talked about the colonial era, but Namibia is also doing some incredible things when it comes to conservation.
Oh, right. You mentioned that earlier. I'm always interested to hear about successful conservation efforts.
Well, what's impressive about Namibia is that they were the first African country to include environmental protection in their constitution.
Wow, that's huge. It shows a real commitment to sustainability right from the start.
Absolutely, and they've been really successful with community-based conservation programs.
Community-based, how does that work?
Essentially, they give local communities legal rights over wildlife and tourism operations within designated conservancies. So the communities benefit directly from tourism and the sustainable use of natural resources.
I see. So it creates a financial incentive for them to protect the wildlife and the environment.
Exactly. And it's been really effective. Nearly 40% of Namibia's land is under some form of conservation management now.
That's amazing. It's a model that a lot of other countries could learn from.
Totally. It's a testament to what can happen when you empower local communities to be stewards of their own environment. Okay, now let's switch gears again back to some of the mysteries of Namibia. We have to talk about the fairy circles.
Fairy circles. Okay, I'm intrigued.
Imagine you're in the Namib Desert and you see these perfectly circular patches of bare soil surrounded by grass. They range in size, but they're just these bizarre formations that dot the landscape for thousands of kilometers.
Hold on. Perfectly circular patches of bare ground. How does that even happen?
That's the mystery. Scientists have been studying them for years, and they've come up with all sorts of theories. Some think it's termites disrupting the vegetation. Others think it has to do with plants competing for water. But there's no definitive answer yet.
Wow, that's so strange. Like these patterns just appearing out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's one of the most unique and intriguing features of the Namibian landscape. And it adds to that sense of mystery that surrounds the desert.
Definitely. Okay, I have to add this to my list too. See the fairy circles.
Absolutely. And while you're there, make sure you take some time to look up at the night sky.
Oh yeah. I've heard Namibia is amazing for stargazing.
It's one of the best places in the world for it. Because it has so little light pollution, you get these incredibly dark skies, and you can see the Milky Way, all the constellations. It's just breathtaking.
Wow, I can only imagine. Like seeing the stars like that must be a completely different experience.
Oh yeah, it's humbling. And they've even designated a specific area, the Namibia Nature Reserve, as a dark sky reserve to protect those pristine night skies.
Oh wow, that's amazing. They're really protecting their environment seriously, huh?
They are. It's inspiring. Okay, before we wrap up, we have to mention one more geological wonder. The Fish River Canyon.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. Isn't that the second largest canyon in the world?
It is, after the Grand Canyon. It stretches for about 160 kilometers and reaches depths of up to 550 meters.
That's massive.
It is, and it's a popular spot for hiking. They have this really challenging multi-day trek called the Fish River Canyon Trail that takes you through this incredible landscape.
Wow, that sounds intense.
It is. It's not for the faint of heart, but for those who love a challenge and stunning scenery, it's a must-do.
I might have to stick to admiring it from the rim.
I hear ya. Well, that brings us to the end of our Namibian deep dive. What a place, right? I mean, from ancient deserts to stunning wildlife to these vast open spaces and some really inspiring conservation efforts.
Seriously. It's a country of extremes and contrasts, that's for sure. I mean, we talked about ancient landscapes and then cutting-edge conservation practices. It's really a place that has it all.
It does. So as we wrap up, I'm curious what stuck with you. What aspect of Namibia's story is resonating most?
Honestly, it's hard to choose. I mean, the sheer age of the Namib Desert is mind-boggling. And then seeing how life thrives in such harsh conditions. But honestly, what really impressed me was their dedication to conservation, like making it part of their constitution. That's a big deal. It shows a real long-term vision.
I agree. It's something we can all learn from. So to our listeners, what about you? What's piqued your interest about Namibia? Is it the adventure, the wildlife, the culture? We encourage you to go do some exploring of your own and discover the magic of this incredible country.
And let us know what you find.
Definitely. Until next time, keep exploring.
Happy travels.